Welcome to GenZ Talks. This is your host, Ryan Solomon, the head of community and content at Entre. At Entre, we built a social network for entrepreneurs, investors, creators, and freelancers. Every week, this show is recorded live on Entre, and I get to interview the most ambitious and young entrepreneurs and investors from around the world. And if you'd like to be a part of our next episode of GenZ Talks, maybe even get to come up on stage and ask a question, make sure to head over to joinentre.com and register for GenZ Talks. Now that that's out of the way, it's time to kick things off. Let's go.
My name's Liam. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Krepling. We're very much on the other side of things. So we are on the commerce inward side of things. We enable brands, essentially the new way, we like to call it new way of enterprise commerce, by enabling them through our no-code based platform. We enable brands right across cross-border retail, which includes any D2C brands, digital native brands, B2B, as well as the no-code community itself. We take a lot of value across Krepling's product suite. Where most of most e-commerce platforms today tend to focus on entry to mid-level commerce, we very much tend to focus on those businesses in scale. We do this by serving a product that is very much no-code focused. It's built integrations from the ground up. It's focused on easy deployment, one-click integration ability. It's very much a platform built post this pre-cloud, pre-mobile era. So we very much pride ourselves enabling the fastest growing brands as quickly as we can, and enable them to actually experience this new gigantic wave, which is e-commerce as a whole. So great to be here and great to meet you guys. Look forward to this conversation.
Fantastic. I'm super excited that I grabbed, if I joined LinkedIn, ironically, I forget where we crossed. That's where we originally reached out. I forget where.
Yeah, it was LinkedIn. Yeah.
Yeah, it was through LinkedIn because I sent you an email before, and I'm happy to have you on board because you have a very different perspective, being a SaaS founder in the space. So it's going to be a very interesting conversation. And now we'll pass it over to Andre. Andre, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me. What's up, everyone? My name is Andre. I'm the owner of a premium lingerie brand, which I started about a year ago this month. And my goal was to always create premium clothing, whether to wear inside your house, whether you're going out or you're going to the gym, going to the airport. So I started on TikTok because I had no means of way to promote my brand. So TikTok was really my main focus. And I'm going to share my screen with you guys so you could see what I'm seeing. And basically I started on TikTok with like 20 followers. And from 2020 to now, I just been like posting a lot of videos. I post educational stuff, how to start your brand, how to grow your business, like things you need to do to start your brand. And currently we're at 108,000 followers. So I'm extremely passionate about TikTok and my brand and also teaching other people. And that's been a great help for me because I want to say about 90% of our sales come directly from TikTok. And then the other 5 or 10% would come from email marketing and my Instagram page. So that's a little bit about the brand. And this is some of the clothing that we currently sell. This was my summer collection, actually. I had 2 collections out. And we're also recently featured in NBC News. It was a crazy story. The producer at NBC just actually found my TikTok page and she reached out to me and she offered to put me inside the NBC. So I said yes, we did an interview and that was a good traction builder for us. So I'm thankful for that. So currently I'm working on my fall collection and hopefully I can have that out within a month. But my main goal now, I think, is I feel like I have so much knowledge when it comes to starting a business and growing a brand or a TikTok page. So I want to start helping more people with their brand and their business. And hopefully that's going to be another career path for me. So yeah, it's a little bit about me and my clothing brand.
Absolutely awesome. If I can get Entre logo on one, I am 100% set getting myself one like the second.
That.
The insert the shut up and take my money meme on that. Super excited. So to kind of kick things off, we're probably going to be jumping back and forth between questions primarily focused on Annelise and Andre, and then we'll also do some that are more focused on the SaaS side of things too, with Liam. And also, first thing I want to start with is, what was your initial steps, and like, what was that first, like, very beginning of building FRONTMAN and also Loungefit? Like, what was that like, just going from, all right, I'm going to start this thing, building that first website? Maybe you're a little scared. Like, what was that like? And what kind of advice would you give to people who are building that first, those first handful of Instagram posts, those first handful of like, I'm actually going to start this brand? What kind of advice would you give to those people that are just starting out?
Yeah. So this is kind of a funny one. So kind of to give you a little bit of the founding story. So I met my co-founder at school. So we were actually undergrads at Harvard. And we had met when we were founding a different thing, a GenZ ad agency. So we actually met when we were working on building out marketing campaigns and working with some cool clients like Lyft and Bumble and people to really help them understand this new Gen Z audience. And for us, it was this like funny conversation that kind of led us to start talking about it. And I think the fact that we stumbled onto it, and then once we thought more about it, we realized that we could actually, do something big and change the industry. Like, that was the real aha moment for us. And of course, it's a little bit scary. But essentially, once we realized that, I can give you more context to you. So we were having basically lunch in a cafe, and Nick turned to me and was like, "Oh, I'm so jealous that women never get acne." And I was like, "What are you talking about? Like, of course women get acne. What?" And he was like, "Oh, I never see women with acne." I was like, "You realize we have a million and one options to, cover or to, instantly, enhance features if we'd like, or, do a myriad of things." And he was like, "Oh my God, growing up as a guy in New Jersey, I didn't have any immediate solutions. It was things that regular skincare that took, like weeks or months to see any kind of effect." And so we started diving into our backgrounds. It made a lot of sense for a few different reasons. So my mom's actually a dermatologist, and part of the reason I grew up with so much skincare knowledge and understanding, which I assumed that everyone had, including guys, which turned out not to be true. Uh, but also, Nick and I were looking through the world, at the world through this Gen Z sort of lens, this Gen Z marketing lens. And I think having really like an urge for brands and companies to take more notice of Gen Z, start thinking about this group and what we want to see in the world, and understanding that the industries that we are being brought up into are not exactly the ones that we want to see exist. And for us, it was this moment of excitement about what could be, and how we could actually make a difference and actually, change things. And I think that's actually a very common sentiment among Gen Z, just this entrepreneurial spirit, which I think is actually much higher than other generations, if I remember the data correctly. Um, and, being creatives and having that sort of creative energy was really what drove us to, start to put in the first, feelers and figure out, okay, how do you actually make a product? What does this process even look like? How much funding will we need? What is this startup path look like? And it was really, fueled by a lot of that excitement about the creative energy and what we could do for our generation.
Really cool. It's honestly clutch that you already had started something with your co-founder, so you knew who they were. Because I think one of the
Yeah,
biggest struggles that founders face is trying to find another co-founder.
exactly. Yeah. And like, I mean, I was just on a panel for Gen Z VCs talking about this at their summit, and finding a co-founder is obviously, I'd say, the largest challenge in creating anything, because you really need to have that strong team from the beginning. And I recommend, even if it's just a tiny side project or something, work on something with your potential co-founders, because you will quickly see, how your communication styles are different, how your skill sets are different, and what you can bring to the table. And even just having even, a little bit of some sort of project that you've done together will really help you understand all of those things about that person.
Absolutely true. I think Liam, you had something to touch on too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We've seen obviously a lot of the last year or so, we've seen a lot of D2C brands come out of our platform, especially, and really been focused. The core metric of their focus of business has really been focusing on on solving a very particular problem. I think that's the great thing that we've definitely seen on our platform is the power of D2C and the power to unlock focus on fixing customer problems. And, it's interesting, Annelise, your guys' brand. I mean, it really is actually solving such a key problem, such a key niche of customer, where I think that's being able to communicate from a brand perspective, I think it's really exciting. I think we've seen a lot of innovation in the past decade when it comes to brands emerging from Amazon and that's the personalized commerce experiences. But I think, the real power of, creating this personalized commerce experiences is really what's transforming D2C as a whole and e-commerce as a whole. So it's really exciting just to hear, your story. I think it's really, really interesting.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we've seen a lot of interesting changes in the space, from the way brands are approaching, some larger issues today, like sustainability and, ethical considerations, and like how that translates into the customer experience and into, um, the real nitty gritty of, being a business today. And so we can get into all that later, but lots of stuff to unpack.
I'm excited for it. And Andre?
Yeah, for me, it was a little bit different for me because I had two other clothing brands previously and I completely failed at them, but I learned some valuable lessons during my time having those clothing brands. So I made a promise to myself, and my promise was I will not try to create another brand until I had all the resources, all the knowledge that I needed to start a successful brand. So this was March 2020 when the initial idea came about, and we just went into lockdown, and I had no idea how it was going to work or fund my life. So I figured this would be the perfect time to start a clothing brand and learn as much as I could at home. So during my first 2, 3 months, I was learning anything I could about clothing brand, the business, manufacturing, fabrics. I was learning the ins and out of a clothing brand. So I knew going in that it was going to be a bad idea to start a business during a pandemic, but it's also a good idea because everyone is going to be wearing loungewear during this time because we're all home. And we didn't know how long this lockdown was going to last. So I had everything I needed by taking the time to learn about the clothing business. So I knew going in that I could figure out a way to sell what I needed to sell and convey my message to my customers. So at first it's scary, yes, but I feel like if you're really passionate about your business or your brand, you will always find a way to make it work.
I couldn't agree more. And I think definitely taking the time to sit down and make sure you're prepared for it is smart. And also you having that past experience of having two failed ones. I think there's a quote that says like fail fast, because like the faster you fail, the quicker you're going to get to the thing that actually succeeds.
Yeah.
And looks like that's probably kind of the trajectory you took.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. And then kind of the next thing I wanted to jump into was I think having a good website, especially whenever it comes to direct to consumer, is extremely powerful. I'm gonna let Liam answer this one first. Um, on what kind of things should if I land on a direct to consumer page, I land on a product page, what are some of those key things that we look for as consumers or as founders should do? And also how has Krepling kind of addressed this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, when you look at the software behind policy businesses, handling just from the overall high level perspective, handling complex logics and be able to process and pull orders is, I think, one of the most important things just from a high level side of things. I think the first thing to break into it, just to start it off, I think will be speed. I think slow websites lose customers to better performing websites, and a poor website performance reflects badly on the brand image overall. Google confirms that site speed is probably one of the most important factors of ranking. And a slow website that drags your search ranking down can really impact sales. We've seen that even before we launched Krepling. So clearly it's important to build a fast running application and ensuring that whatever that CMS is using, you're not having applications that are slowing down front end and back end performance. So how fast your website loads depends on a variety of factors. Obviously, it's the web host, the static files that are being served, the size of the code, and operations performed by the code in your site, etc. I would say the second is definitely reliability. Downtime, although it's very rare nowadays, I think has detrimental effects on e-commerce revenue, especially during obviously peak traffic times. I think the third most important thing, I would say product customization. I think this nowadays is becoming more and more important, especially this pre-post COVID era. E-commerce is going through a change where business interfaces look more customized, where, welcoming online store for visitors rather than just having a list of products is probably a priority for most stores nowadays. Businesses have started to personalize website content, especially on our platform, such as products, images, and offers according to the visitor demographics thereafter, also based on interests and what have you, order history, leading to obviously better user engagement and increased orders. So I think building an application that is extensively customized and is supported amongst your niche brand and is embedded into what sort of ads you're running or what have you, I think can really go a long way. So going the extra mile when it comes to product customization, I think it's been really, really transformational for the brands we've at least seen. I would say, from an architectural perspective, I think, you've seen this very much transform in the way e-commerce especially has really changed over the last couple of years. I think a well-designed architecture for a D2C e-commerce system is vital. And, a choice that we always honk on about when we're talking to potential clients or onboarding potential clients is, there should be a result of a conscious, collaborative and selection process in terms of understanding how various architectural tactics and patterns can affect an e-commerce store. Integration technologies are becoming huge. We're seeing this new approach for e-commerce nowadays where brands are leveraging multiple different integrations and multiple different components. It's not just, simply listing your products on a store and going from there. We're seeing breakthrough integrations through Facebook ads, through Google ads, integrating with Shopify stores. Now there's a TikTok partnership as well. So I think having a very, very strong backend can go a long way, as well as having a great looking site, which I think goes without saying is crucial to really growing an e-commerce brand and building that initial trust. So, I think everything I've listed there, I think of the most crucial things from a high level perspective. And I think, any brand that's leveraging all four of those iconically and doing it right, I think gives them an edge over any other competitor in their space. But again, you'd be surprised of how many brands, forgets how speed can leverage certain components of their business, how security is even a problem. E-commerce application security is crucial. Protecting customer data, going against fraud. When security is not implemented properly, both merchants and customers are at serious risk. And I think this is why no-code platforms are able to transform the industry as a whole, because they're enabling at least, speed, security, and at least reliability. But, that being said, it's still heavily underestimated how, many brands actually neglect certain aspects of a back-end perspective and just focusing on front end.
That is a really interesting take, because in my head, I was like thinking of the aesthetics of a website and you just kind of threw that out the door, minus what you were saying about customization. And one of the things I wanted to touch on real quick before we pass the mic, were you mentioning having custom websites for specific target audiences? So like, for example, if I went on Nike and it knows that I'm a 23-year-old dude, it's going to have a different landing page essentially for myself than if Annelise was to go on to Nike's website.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that's, I would say it's always been around, but we're seeing the application of something like this really emerging over the last couple of months, especially post-COVID, is that, when brands are targeting certain demographics, and this very, very niche demographics, if you have a brand that's very focused on, let's say, two particular niches, they very much do tend to build out different storefronts, different web pages entirely, with different contents based on that demographic or target audience. So for example, if you're targeted an age group that's 20, 30 above, you're definitely going to have different types of products, especially having a large D2C store that you have different types, even if it's simple things like different shoe sizes or different types of brands you're going to start leveraging. I think, if you're going after certain, if you're going to take this approach of being a cross-border retail store and you're going after different demographics, it might be a good time to consider, if how best to convert those users I'm getting from those ads. So they're having different products, images, and even offers according to the demographics you're after, even interests and order history. This automatically all leads to better user engagement, which down the line could lead to increased orders. So I think absolutely, I think this is something we're seeing early on, and I think will start being applied for the smaller scale brands. It always starts with the big brands starting to leverage these sort of tactics. But the more platforms can sort of keep up with these trends and able to democratize certain features, which is what we're all about, I think you start to see the smaller brands catch on, and the businesses that are scaling catch on, and the results always better user engagement leading to increased orders.
This is super interesting. Annelise?
Yeah, I think totally all of that is exactly, on point for what we're thinking about as a brand on the other side of it. I mean, like so my background's actually in brand design and also web design. So, the aesthetics are important, but more importantly, it's about customer psychology as well. So when Liam mentions, the relevance of the page, like that is really our top priority. Now that we've paid for someone to get to this page, making sure that it is the ideal page and the ideal message and content that will convince them to buy, right? For us, we have way more than one customer profile type. We have, at the most, zoomed out view, basically two customer types: the Gen Z guy and then his mom or his girlfriend. And so when we drive ads, we have separate landing pages that are extremely. It's a very sort of taping it together way of doing, what Liam's talking about with the dynamic content. But really just sort of directing them to different areas with different messages, so that it can be relevant, right? Because if I go from an ad that says, hey, you're a mom of a teen boy with acne, you should get this thing, to, oh, now we're on a landing page that is addressing the teen boy himself directly, that's not exactly a cognitive shift that's helpful for, inducing conversion. So that's the kind of thing that we spend a lot of time thinking about and have to do the old fashioned way, unfortunately, rather than having a nice no code solution.
Well, good thing you got the co-founder here.
Yeah. Liam, hook us up.
Andre? Well, actually, Liam might be setting up a deal through Entre Pro. We're going to have to follow up on that probably after the event. So definitely be on the lookout for that. And Andre?
Yes, definitely. I definitely agree with Liam and Annelise. The aesthetics of your website is important, but one of the main things I found out early on when I was building my website is the flow. So initially, when I first built my first website, the flow wasn't right. So I would be losing customers who are coming to my website, but they're not getting the information and they're not taking the necessary steps that they need to go from whether it's the homepage to the product page to the checkout page. So the flow of your website is extremely important today with customers, because I would say let's say like 50% of the people who come on your website, they're probably going to leave because their attention span is so short and they're just trying to see what you have to offer, and then they're leaving. And then if you create a good experience for that customer, they're more likely to check out. So I think the flow of your website is extremely important for the shopping experience. And one of the main things that I learned also was optimizing your product pages. So before, I would just put like a quick description of my product. But then after following a couple of people on Instagram, I realized that you need to have more detailed product pages, description, benefits of the product, pictures of the product, whether it's on the model or like flat lazed. And one thing I also noticed is I just added the new feature, like buy now, pay later. I use Afterpay, and that I would say increased my sales a lot. Like I didn't realize how many people didn't want to pay, say, $60 for a hoodie right away. They'd rather pay for it over 3 months or 6 months just to say that they had this hoodie. So one of the biggest thing I think that all stores should have now is some type of Afterpay or Klarna or Affirm, whichever one it is. Definitely integrate that on your website and you'll see a big change in your sales.
That is super interesting because I've seen the buy now, pay later thing. I haven't done it myself before, but it honestly makes sense, especially for higher ticket items. Like a nice expensive, not a little expensive, hoodie.
Yeah.
Makes it-
So my hoodies, go ahead. Yeah. So my hoodies are somewhat pricey. Like I get comments all the time. Why is it so expensive? Like I wouldn't buy that. But once people get that product in their hand, they completely fall in love with it and they're more likely to shop again. So a lot of my existing customers come back again and they're the ones using the afterpay payment option.
No, it honestly, I was gifted a champion hoodie and I wear it all the time because it's thick and really high quality. So I know that if I was to buy one of yours, I would do the exact same thing. Like whenever you get a really high quality product, you do really see a difference and it makes a huge, huge difference versus having like a $5 hoodie you bought from a street vendor, right? It does make a huge difference. But the next thing I did want to jump into is kind of growth tactics in sales. So I know Annelise touched a little bit on doing some paid ads. I know Andre talked mostly on TikTok. Liam, I know you're from SaaS, but I'm sure that you have a lot of D2C founders that are your customers. What kind of advice would you give to somebody who's starting out their brand, and where should they put their time and effort, especially if it's a 1-person team, 2, maybe 3-person team max, to kind of like figure out, should I go email? Should I go TikTok? Should I go Instagram? SEO? What should I be putting my time and energy towards? And you guys can read, Andre.
I say I'm all about TikToks. You guys are gonna hear me talk about TikTok like 100.
I love it too.
I firmly believe in TikTok. Like it's been the platform that's drives so much traffic to my website, and it's all organic. Like you can literally post one video and it'll change your entire life. That's how crazy it is. And the organic growth on there is just absolutely just ridiculous. So if you're just a one man band or you have 1 or 2 people, just have somebody be the face of your brand on TikTok and just create as much content as possible. And I promise you, within a month, 2 months, you'll see the reach and the organic growth just by taking the time to create quality content on TikTok.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think absolutely. I would have about to say, all organic is probably the best way of doing things. TikTok obviously has been fantastic, and Andrea, I think you've put the nail on the head there. I think it's such a great growth channel for anyone looking to get that early stage organic growth. I would always say, the best start, I think, Andrea, you actually already mentioned this, was ensuring that those organic users you're going to be attracting are in a position to actually convert, at least that you thought about building the store in a way that you are able to convert. The best way to do that. And I think, as you mentioned, workflows and flows are probably the best way to be doing that. Even if you're not going through the advanced flows, if you're not leveraging any base integrations or APIs to create those flows, even basic flows where you have simple triggers, conditions, and actions in place. It can be as simple as creating a landing page that is most optimal for certain triggers, where you're attracting users and you're pushing certain actions through certain incentivized offers. It could be discounts, it could be certain products you're leveraging. The afterpay thing is absolutely one of the things we've seen a lot of users leverage. And I think that's something on the rise recently, which I think a lot of consumers, especially post-COVID, are more accepting towards, is this afterpay sort of idea when it comes to e-commerce products. I think if you looked 5 years ago, even less, you probably would have had a lot of users who weren't really open to that idea. When we were originally e-commerce merchants, we looked at doing a Klarna-based solution, and it didn't seem that, a person wasn't really quite happy to do a after payment or a monthly subscription payment for a clothing item. Nowadays, that's completely changed. I think anyone will be looking to do that, especially if you high ticket items. I think they're much more likely to go with that sort of idea. So I think that's also a great trigger. And I think there are many different triggers nowadays that different stores are leveraging. And as I said, it can be the most complex when it comes to flows we see on our platform. Users are leveraging flows when it comes to HubSpot integrations, abandoned carts with users under a certain age gap, that they can trigger a certain email campaign or conditional demographic campaign. But even the more basic ones, I think, are something that it's great to think about before you start leveraging very expensive ads, or trying to drive traffic that is paid for, especially. You don't want to be paying and they land on your website and there's no real trigger or conditional action for the users to even check out. So I think, from organics, from when you're starting out, I think when you're building on your website, when you have that time, I think it doesn't cost anything to be thinking about, how these users are going to be checking out and how best can I optimize my site to ensure that those who are checking out or buying certain items can leverage other items, or they can be checking out or not even abandoning carts or buying the most exclusive items. So I think identifying the right flow, from the most basic level is really important for, especially if you're looking to leverage paid ads. You want to make sure those users are converting, or at least you're trying to convert them as best as you possibly can.
Yeah, in my opinion, I'd say it's actually quite different for each company. What is going to be the thing that really unlocks scalable growth? For Andre, it's TikTok, obviously. But it's really a test and learn thing that you need to do from the very beginning. And when you're in that phase of really trying to find your key go-to-market strategy, it's all about testing and learning and seeing, what best optimal outcomes you can get from each platform. Whether it's just word of mouth, whether it's referral, whether it's, building that online community, either TikTok, Instagram, wherever, or it's, going down some of the more paid traditional routes, and seeing some really good numbers there. It really depends, and it also depends on exactly who your target audience is, right? Like if I were just, taking a mom's approach to our product, TikTok would not be the way to go, unfortunately. And so it's really about kind of thinking, where does my customer live? Where do they live mentally? And how can I get their attention there? And that could be in some of the most, unexpected places, right? Like for us, we are thinking a lot about experiential activations on college campuses, right? And how do we set that up? And how do we find people in a place where they're not expecting to discover a brand? And that is, I think, a way to break through a lot of the fatigue we've seen with ads and also with content now.
I 100% agree. It definitely does really depend on, like you said, like if you're targeting moms, it's probably TikTok's probably not the place to be. It definitely.
Yeah, it really depends. And it's all about really figuring out, again, where they live, where their headspace is, and what their media consumption is like, if you're thinking about it purely from a digital perspective. But there are also lots of offline opportunities as well that people often underestimate, but can be huge at the very beginning of a startup.
I was gonna add, like, to Andre's original point. So I'm also someone who's like very bullish on TikTok. It is an absolute. I tell this to even consumer tech founders as well, and I'd even tell this to you, Liam. That it's just an absolute gem, because, like Andre said, you don't know when one video is just going to pop off. It's really funny because some of the videos that I put in like a lot of effort towards will like flop. And then some of the other ones that I literally don't put any effort in towards will get like 100,000 or 200,000 views. And it's absolutely crazy. And then it's also another fun fact about TikTok. You see Jesus in the audience. He's on the Entre team. He actually jumped into our TikTok live, and then we became friends, and then he joined the Entre team. So like TikTok is an absolute gem. And I even see a SaaS founder on TikTok who's a startup called Octopus that's similar to Honey in a way, where you'd go on Amazon and it would show you the price of products on other websites and you'd find the cheapest product for you. And he literally will just find new hot products that people are looking to buy. And then he'll just like, dude, you wanted to buy the new AirPods? Well, they're $250 on Amazon, but you didn't realize that they were actually $194 at Best Buy. If you would have downloaded my app, you would know. And he just does these super simple videos, and sometimes they'll go viral, which converts him a bunch of new users.
Yeah, it is a super variable platform. It's just so hard, right? Because it's like, if you can commit the time and the money to creating all of the organic content and like having that constant flow, then it totally makes sense. But sometimes that's not a viable option, and sometimes you can't rely on the sporadic nature of the platform.
Andre?
Annelise, I think I think you'd be surprised how many moms are on TikTok
Andre.
because
True, it's true. No, no, I mean, I only bring that up as an example that we are working with moms on TikTok, so don't worry about it.
exactly. So I think you know what type of people are on there too. And there's a lot of moms on there and they could potentially get your product for their kids. So I think if you could find the time and like you said, the money to create the content, then definitely go like all in with it.
Don't worry, it's still on our list.
I just want to make sure.
I couldn't agree more. There's definitely it's wild because it just shows your videos to who it thinks wants to see them. So it's a really, really great tool. And I think that's really where content shifting with YouTube Shorts as well, Instagram Reels, all of the short form content platforms are absolute gold mines, but TikTok is still the king. Also, quick note, I'm very bullish on YouTube Shorts being better.
Really interesting.
Very bullish on it. We actually had a video get like 5.6 million views on YouTube Shorts, and it was fantastic. And I think the reason why I'm very bullish on YouTube Shorts is because if you think about it, a lot of people on TikTok, especially more content creator specific, not necessarily founders, are driving people from their TikTok to their YouTube to listen to watch their podcast or their long form content, etc. So I think YouTube Shorts is just going to be a no brainer for YouTube creators. And I also think Google has so much data on everybody that their algorithms are kind of crap now, but I think it's going to be absolutely insane. So I'm very, very bullish on YouTube Shorts. So we try to keep posting on there as well. But to kind of jump into, see here, I wanted to go into, this is actually an interesting question. So what kind of tools, obviously, Liam, you're a little bit biased, but what kind of tools do you suggest that early stage D2C people use, D2C founders are going to use whenever they're first either building their website, building out their team, setting things up? Maybe what is your stack and how you organize and operate? Annelise?
I think the first thing is really just getting the clarity on the analytics on the back end. Like you can't make any decisions until you know where people are coming from and you know what behaviors they're taking on your site. And so setting up all of the standard ones, you know, Google Analytics, that kind of thing, maybe even like Hotjar, some of those. But then also, you know, if there are more advanced tools as well that can help you really identify, you know, where they're coming from. That's, I think, is the number one thing because it really sets the basis for all of your data and decision making. So you really have to get that set up immediately, just in case you go viral and pop up, and then you have no idea where everyone came from. So you want to set that up first thing.
Hopefully Liam doesn't come at me, but my biggest tool I would say is Shopify. And I'm looking into Liam's company right now and I'm looking at the differences between that and Shopify. But currently or initially, my biggest driving factor was learning how to build a good website on Shopify. So they pretty much they had everything that I needed to create a simple website for desktop, mobiles, Androids, iPads, and everything. So for new business owners, I would say having a good platform to build your site on is probably going to be one of the tools that you need to succeed within your business.
Yeah, no, I actually fully agree. I think Shopify is a great solution. I think its ability to enable e-commerce goers to get started as quickly as possible is fantastic. They've definitely been the front runner when it comes to that. I was going to say, you know, when it comes to e-commerce platforms, I would say they're one of the best, especially for the specific B2B e-commerce goers, especially this first time people who are just, you know, getting into this new world of e-commerce. I would say, you know, when it comes to the best tools, I would say I'll break it down into simple categories. So I think e-commerce ordering tools are becoming very popular nowadays. I think, you know, there's involved the steps. There's many different steps involved to handling order management. I think D2C orders are more complex than B2B ones, I would say. I think especially in D2C e-commerce ordering processes, it also becomes more complicated as businesses begin to scale. I think simplifying the ordering process is a sure way to fulfill orders and promise, and almost also helps you retain customers. And I think any order management system, Shippo is a good one, Order is a great one, makes the ordering process easy for customers and employees by semi-automating those workflows. Customers can view purchase history, they can share shopping lists, reorder products, and use the same technology to actually place different orders as well. So it's very much a front end tool as well. I would say the second is probably product information management. I think, the brands we're particularly targeting, which is mainly on the larger enterprise size, all D2C focused. I think, the burden of managing large amounts of product data by providing a central storage repositories is a hassle. I think, managing product data, managing hundreds of different products, some even these D2C brands, or even go in the physical space as well. And I think a software that allows you to enrich your product your product database is huge. And I think the way customers are discovering, evaluating, and purchasing products is constantly changing. Businesses with these certain products like this can easily import, enhance, and organize SKUs with software, with product information management software. If any issues affect the buying experience, the centralized tools identify them, so businesses can also make edits and help customers find products easier, and etc. So I think that's goes a long way if e-commerce goes. I would also say digital payments is going a long way as well. I say besides integrating with traditional payment methods such as, traditional checks, PayPal's, trade credit, ACH, wire transfers, certain D2C e-commerce platforms are integrating really well with existing commerce platform process payments by credit cards, debit cards, digital wallets like Apple Pay, Google Pay. I think doing this helps detect and not only block fraudulent payments and provide extensive support for managing disputes and refunds, but also allows e-commerce goers to see increased conversion rates. I think, one-click payments are becoming a really interesting factor in e-commerce. I think this is one thing we're really trying to stay on top of, is digital payments as well as the others. And I think these are tools. Honorable mentions, I would say, Adobe Commerce is providing great B2B merchant extensive integrations, intelligent workflows. I would say Salesforce is fantastic, helping great D2C vendors quickly launch great stores as well, similar to how Andre said with Shopify. BigCommerce also being fantastic. And I think, we're trying to leverage the best of B2B commerce as well as a platform ourselves to enable this and the next wave of enterprise commerce by taking these key takeaways from these different tools across different commerce verticals. But it's exciting. I think, e-commerce is transforming rapidly, not just the D2C space. I think the tools that are coming into the industry is really, really just the real winners. See how the e-commerce goes. I think it's great to see such innovation in such a short span of time, I would say.
Annelise, you have something to add?
Yeah, I'd say one thing, speaking on the topic of platforms, I've built many a site, and it is really interesting, to hear from you, Liam, how you're taking the learnings from all the different sites and their sort of limitations. I have found that every one of them has drawbacks, and even with, no code solutions like Webflow, like it's really not built for e-commerce. And so Shopify is Shopify in comparison to no code solutions looks pretty much like trash. But it does have a lot of the back end functionality that we really need. So I'm still waiting for maybe that dream platform. Maybe it's Krepling, where I can sit down and actually design things myself as a designer, and also have the back end functionality that can really take us to the next level.
I'm super excited, and definitely one thing for anyone who is in the audience, if you do have a question for our awesome panelists up here on stage, we've got about 15 minutes left. If you do have a question, you can just hit the little raise hand button and I can bring you up on stage. Or if you're a little shy, you're welcome to use the in-room chat and just drop a question. But if not, I can just keep on rolling. So kind of the next thing I would have gone to was, especially as you guys all being founders, what was one of the biggest challenges that you guys have faced? It could be when you were just starting out, or maybe you had a mental breakdown today, who knows? Or what is one of the biggest challenges that you faced as being a founder? And anyone's welcome to jump in.
I would say I have a couple challenges that I still face to this day. And my biggest challenge is coming up with funding because starting a clothing brand, it costs a lot of money to build a brand from scratch. So my goal was to never print like text and logos and stuff on a blank. So I would never use a Gildan. I would never use a blank. So I want to create good quality products, but to create that product, it costs a lot of money to get your fabrics from scratch. So funding is a really big challenge, especially for small businesses like mine. And I'm sure there's people in here who will have the same problem. Um, Another challenge for me is not being around enough creatives to show my vision or to bounce ideas off of people. So I do everything in-house by myself. So every day I have to think of the next best idea and there's no one around me to say like, hey, this is shit, sorry, but it's bad, don't do it. Or what they say, actually, I like that. So not having the right people around you could be a really, really big challenge. And it could either stunt your growth or um really make you excel. So those are my two biggest challenges as a small business owners. And I would love to know what Liam's and Annelise challenges are.
It's actually funny. I think on the creative side, I've had that challenge before as well. And it only recently has changed because my co-founder moved to New York. So we've been in the same place for like the first time in a year and a half. And so we can, have more of those brainstorms freely and have that free flow of ideas because it is, I mean, it's very hard, especially as a solo founder. I can imagine to uh, constantly be setting your own agenda and setting your own goals. I think that's a really hard part of the job is you don't have anyone to really turn to. And it's about also creating that network of advisors and investors that you potentially can turn to. And um, I agree for us, it also has been funding and um, it's been interesting. I mean, we've had so much interest in the concept, the brand, the market, all of that. And yet somehow VC likes to move at a snail's pace. So it always is a real challenge. And, we have very big plans, which require a lots of funding. uh, Not anything crazy, but a good amount. And so on the same kind of side of product development and paying for raw materials and things that are quality and quite expensive. And so um, agree that funding has been a challenge, and especially also finding diverse investors. A lot of the people on our cap table have been, a lot of people that I've been talking to, which is, a lot of the same kind of profile of person and not a lot of women and not a lot of people of color. And I think it's really unfortunate that, 2% of funding still goes to female founders. And really, there has not been much change in the industry around that key talking point.
Yeah, no, I would first of all agreeing with what you guys have both laid out. I think it's very, very true. Going into the funding side of things, completely agree. I think, just looking from, these some of the businesses we're seeing, the VC funding around the DDC space, space in general, I think has come a long way. I think it's exciting to see, the venture capital firms in the last few years have began to sort of see the pandemic accelerated e-commerce growth and the growth of obviously some of the DC brands. I'm sure you guys have experienced tenfold. And I think it's interesting to see venture capital understanding this. And I think, when we look at the companies we're seeing, the number of deals and average value have been on the rise a lot since around 2018 to 2020. But 2021 was just really, really exciting, I think, for the DC space. So I think it's great to see that there's this sort of adaptation. But Annalise, you mentioned it great that I think there's still this convention around e-commerce in terms of the funding side of things that, it's not quite SaaS, but it's just as scalable. I think the innovation around the model DTC is really exciting. And I think this idea that you can go from a manufacturer then straight to a consumer and cut out the middleman, offer superior products at a lower price with a really great brand and a great consumer experience. I mean, I think that in itself is really quite revolutionary. And I think venture capital as a whole is starting to catch wind of this. And it's unfortunate that it's still the way it is today. But I think, and as you mentioned, this is still quite, there's still this typical venture capital focus on D2C. It's just the same usual process, identifying it, but it's motivating to see that there is certain pockets of venture capital that's sort of starting to understand the space as a whole, and it's exciting to see companies are being funded for the right reasons, and that's exactly the innovation they're bringing. I think there's tremendous innovation on the DDC side of things. I think every company is innovating in their own way, and I think that's just exciting for us as founders. I think it's exciting for us to just see it, but as well as now venture capital catch a wind of that, and I think the years going forward look very exciting. And I think, I think it's still it's a long way to go. But it's nice to see things are slowly getting to where they should be after so many years of sort of founders barking on about it. But now it's sort of the proof's in the pudding, at least.
I love all the things you guys touched on. And also one thing I wanted to ask is, have either of you guys looked into ClearBank, or I think they rebranded to ClearCo as a potential option for funding?
Yeah, we have. It's interesting because like there have been a lot of alternative funding models that have come out. Like Shopify has one with Shopify Capital. Like everyone is trying to, I think, support small businesses with, cash influxes, especially during the pandemic. But it is limited. I mean, like when you're talking about purchase orders that are hundreds of thousands of dollars, it's not something that you know, a ClearBank might allow for at this stage of growth.
I agree with Annelise about ClearBank and Shopify Pay because I've looked into both, and ClearBank didn't really have what I needed, but I currently use Shopify Capital, and it's amazing because they can loan you, say, $5,000, and they just take that you repay the loan by using your monthly or daily sales. So I'm not worrying about how I'm going to pay back this loan. And I know that as long as my business keep getting sales, I'm going to be able to fund this loan. And one thing with Shopify is once you pay off your loan, right before you even pay it off, they offer you another chance of getting another loan. So it helps you stay one step ahead. And that pretty much is what helping me fund my future collections. Cause now I can order more, which means I can sell more products and have a higher return rate on my money. So Shopify Pay and ClearCo could definitely be a potential winner for small business owners.
Do you know how much that they're, and we said like you can't get up to $100,000. Do you know what their limit is?
I don't know what their limit is actually.
It's dependent on your revenue. So they have some sort of formula that they use to determine, what is de-risked.
That makes perfect sense. And we'll bring up, I see Christian has a question real quick. I want to bring up Christian. How's it going, Christian?
Hi, everybody. Thank you for all the advice. I heard that Brex is a bank that offers a lot, like a big line of credits for a lot of online businesses like the ones you'll have. Have you looked into that option at all?
Not really. I've looked into them for the credit card side of things. But that's a good point. We should make a point of looking into that more.
I'm about to look into Brex right now too. Already got it.
Also, if you do sign up for Brex, we actually do have a deal with them. I think it's spend $1,000, get $500 cash, and also $2,500 worth of AWS credits. So we have Brex, and we also have a deal with Mercury Bank as well.
Wow. Okay. I'll look into that for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, like a competitor to Brex.
Michael, you could probably touch on that better.
Is what a competitor?
Mercury.
Kind of not. I mean, Mercury is more of a traditional bank. They're not really offering credit options really yet. They're definitely like a better bank. Like Brex has kind of a bank account, but we don't really use that for banking. Like we use Brex just for like the points and the rewards and all of that. But Brex, their credit is tied to how much cash you have in your bank. So they base their credit limit off of how much cash you have in your bank, not on like your credit score. So usually it's around 25% of like how much cash you actually have in your linked bank account. So if you have like 100K in your bank account, you'll get a $25,000 limit that month to spend on credit. But they have like really good cash back and rewards and all sorts of perks and stuff like that. And yeah, they're one of like our biggest partners too. So can definitely introduce you to their team if anyone's interested in that.
Yeah, I'd love that.
For sure. The other big one that's really popular is Pipe as well. They're more of like a monthly recurring. They're more of like a subscription, kind of model. They mostly just turn like if you have recurring revenue into, if you have like monthly recurring revenue, they'll give you like the upfront annual of that right away. So there's a bunch of them coming out, like you guys mentioned. Most of them are kind of like revenue focused. Like Stripe has one too that they rolled out, but they're kind of crappy in some cases. Some of them are better than others, but in a lot of cases, that's why people are still taking VC dollars, because it's just easier.
Yeah.
And also one thing I did want to plug is I was showing the pitch competition. You guys are all welcome to apply and hopefully if you win, get a free $1,000 cash, non-equity. So doesn't hurt. We don't have too many. Actually, we do have a couple consumer, direct to consumer. We have Emily Cookies, who's actually towards the top, who has healthy cookies. So definitely worth looking into. But I do want to pass it to Daniel because we are coming up on time for our last question. Daniel, welcome to the stage.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I was just curious, what are the best e-commerce fulfillment channels based on all of your experiences?
Fulfillment. You guys?
Yeah. So for us, we've used a few different solutions. We had like a connection to a 3PL that we ended up using that had a very, very cheap per package rate, and ended up not being able to hit they have very, very high minimum orders for monthly orders that they would ship. So we actually are transferring over to ShipNock, which is, I think, a pretty good solution for most companies, and gives you like flexibility basically on not your per unit cost, but how many units they'll be able to ship for you, and it sort of gradually scales from there.
Andre, do you have something to add to that?
I actually don't use any fulfillment center, so I wouldn't even be knowledgeable in that because I pack and ship everything myself. So everything is done in-house for me.
Yeah, I've seen that on the TikTok videos of all the packages. Definitely a good way to build the brand.
I think I can just touch upon what most of our users are using. I think the most interesting one obviously is Amazon. I think its moats is practically impenetrable. I think its addition to adding fulfillment centers, Amazon has really vastly improved its middle to mile capabilities with significant investments. I think e-commerce goers are really leveraging Amazon Prime, especially, I think, as a fulfillment network. I think one thing that's really doing well is Target. I think retailers like Target are starting to gain ground in same day fulfillment. I think even sometimes being more competitive over Amazon. The companies also have great investments in rapid fulfillment, last mile capabilities in recent years. I think it's even including the acquisition of a company called Grand Junction in 2017, which is purely focused on transportation and same day shipping. So it has around 40 to 50 distribution centers. I think it's a great fulfillment network. And I think a lot of D2C brands are starting to leverage that as well. I think Shopify is great as well. I think Shopify Fulfillment, SFN, I think is also great. I think, directly works fulfillment by Amazon. I think they are facing real world problems with SFN. I think there's no doubt that Shopify offers some of the world's best e-commerce platforms for SMBs. And it's made some sense for them to move into fintech as well, with payment processing, small business loans, bank accounts, installment payments, etc. But I think even though that, I think Shopify is still not so the right choice yet for businesses yet of that scale when it comes to fulfillment. I think best fulfillment logistics entirely on a different, I think fulfillment as itself is an entirely different beast. I think over the last 9 quarterly earning calls, I think no few analysts were met with vague answers when it comes to their fulfillment network and real world progress. So it's interesting to see. I think fulfillment capacity is definitely shrinking as well. I think one of the most apparent signs when it definitely comes to SFN and other fulfillment networks is that it's really sort of It's not really where it should be to date, but I think, I think it's got a long way to go. But I think the e-commerce goes, we're seeing the larger brands, I think still the biggest players right now are Amazon and Target. I think if you're any e-commerce goes looking to leverage basic fulfillment network, I think those are definitely the leaders. Anyone on Shopify, I would definitely say give Shopify fulfillment a try, but definitely be leveraging Amazon and Target fulfillment.
Daniel, I hope that those answered your question. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming up on stage, both Christian, Daniel, and obviously Michael. We are a little bit past the hour. And I just want to ask, the last question is, honestly, do you have any wise words of wisdom or call to action for anyone who's listening to walk away with? And then we can wrap up.
I would say go full steam ahead on TikTok and don't look back.
How did I know? Annelise?
I would say D2C is potentially the easiest way to get started on any idea that you're thinking of. And so even if it's just throwing up a landing page and starting to send people to it and seeing their reaction, pre-product, like that is all useful information and now easier than ever to do. So definitely go for it and just make a site and start from there.
Love that. And Liam, on the SaaS side of things?
Yeah, I would say just focus on solving the problem. I think even from a D2C side of things, if you're creating a problem, you're solving a problem, and people pay attention to that. I think investors pay attention to that. People pay attention to that, and I think that's what it all comes down to. Is if you're solving a problem and you're passionate about that problem, just get out there and solve it. Basically, simple. It sounds simple, but sometimes just as simple as that. So I think that goes across to any D2C founders as well as SaaS founders.
Absolutely true. And that's us right now, trying to be really narrowed in and focused on just supporting as many entrepreneurs as possible. So thank you all so much. I really do appreciate you guys taking the time to come hang out with me for an hour, share your advice, your best practices. Like, I can't thank you guys enough. I'm so happy that I got to sit down with 3 really incredible founders. And if there's any way that I can support or anyone else from the Entre team, please just don't hesitate to shoot me a message on here.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for having me.
Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it.
Thank you guys so much. We are going to be posting this up on YouTube here later and getting this out on podcast as well. So thank you guys so much. I really appreciate the time. And make sure to be on the lookout for all of our upcoming events right in the calendar feed. And make sure to follow Annelise, Liam, and Andre here on Entre to keep up with the date on everything they got going on. So, all right, guys, I'm going to close the room. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
All the best.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of GenZ Talks. Make sure to connect with me and thousands of other entrepreneurs, investors, and creators over at joinentre.com. Or you can download our mobile app for both iOS and Android. Also, don't forget to follow us on social at Join Entre